My name is Dr. Rahil Roopani. I'm a hair restoration surgeon at the Root Hair Institute in Bellevue, Washington.
And I'm Dr. Natalie Kash. I'm a board-certified dermatologist and hair restoration surgeon at Root Hair Institute.
You know, it's nice going before you because you have such an awesome last name, Dr. Kash. And it's very difficult to follow that up because no one else's last name is that cool. But we're also really excited to share kind of a little bit about ourselves. We've been talking about this for a while, kind of sharing our journey, because we are also husband and wife as well as business partners. And sometimes you're also my boss in the office and at home. But let's tell everyone a little bit about RHI, Root Hair Institute.
We started Root Hair Institute because we saw a really big need for comprehensive solutions to hair loss and for inclusive care for all genders and backgrounds, whereas the industry traditionally has focused really on certain individuals. So we wanted to provide comprehensive care, both in terms of providing a lot of different treatments and including diagnostics, but also providing care that's appropriate for all types of people.
I think the Root Hair Institute difference, the RHI difference, as we like to call it internally, is that we really try to bring back old school medicine to the masses, right? So all the marginalized people that Natalie was mentioning earlier, we want to also cater to them. They also suffer from hair loss. Of course, they care. In this day and age where, you know, half your meetings are on Zoom, and you kind of just see things that you're not happy with, especially when it comes to your hair. And so unfortunately, medicine has gone down this track as other industries where AI and digitization has reduced face time with, you know, other humans. And at Root Hair Institute, we try to bring it back to the basics. We like to see patients in office. We do all of our consultations. We diagnose and we create tailored solutions because hair loss is a long-term issue, right? And so the treatment has to be long-term. And so when you combine all those things, I think you can come up with a good solution that has buy-in from our patients. And it turns out to be a pretty fun journey for everyone involved. Albeit difficult, it is fun.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing about having our own clinic versus working for someone is we are able to make those calls like you're talking about to actually spend the time needed with patients. And it's not just trying to maximize volume, but to, you know, spend the time that people need, counsel them appropriately, make sure they understand all their options and they're making the right decision for them. So that's always the nice part about being a business owner versus, you know, having to work for someone and meet certain quotas.
Yeah, but you know what made all of this a little bit easier but complex and complicated at times is that we're also married. So we have to work together in the office, and we, of course, live together, and we just had a baby. And so it's interesting, you know, most people don't do this. They don't participate in their work and home lives with their partners. And so for us, I mean, let's tell everyone a little bit about why we went this route as opposed to going our own separate career paths and journeys.
So I'll start with why I went this route, and then I guess you can add on why you decided to join me. So yeah, I am a dermatologist. So I did a dermatology residency. When I finished my derm residency, I decided I wanted to go on and do a hair restoration fellowship. The reason for that was, you know, hair loss was an area that a lot of dermatologists don't enjoy treating because it can be really complicated. There's a lot of different causes of it, and it takes a lot of counseling that sometimes people, you know, didn't want, or not they didn't want to, but they didn't have the time to in the setting of general dermatology when you need to, you know, see a lot of patients, skin cancers, rashes, that kind of thing. And so I just have always found the science of hair super interesting since med school. And it was always something that I was interested in. I had published a paper on it when I was a med student. And in residency at my program, I really didn't have exposure. I had zero exposure to hair transplant surgery. And I knew that if I wanted to be able to treat hair loss comprehensively, I was going to need to be able to also offer hair transplant surgery. So I decided to do one of very few fellowship programs approved by the ISHRS, which is the International Society of Hair Restoration Surgery. I completed that and spent a whole year. You can just kind of learn, here and there hair transplant, or go to a weekend course or go to a workshop. But I'm not that type of person. I don't like to start doing something unless I'm really, really good at it and truly an expert in it. So I wanted to make sure I really knew how to do it, that I had seen complications, that I had seen a variety of cases, including different types of people, different types of cases. So things like scar tissue from radiation, from cancers, from scarring types of hair loss. So those kind of rare things that most people don't know how to deal with, I wanted to be able to deal with those. So I did that year-long fellowship and really, really enjoyed it. And I think the way that you joined me on that, which was not our plan was not to work together, was I talked so much about how cool everything I was doing was and how cool and enjoyable the surgeries were. And it's really unique because during hair transplants, you only, here at Hair Institute, we right now do one transplant per day, which is great because we can really focus on that. But in hair surgery, generally, you only have a few patients per day maximum. So you really get to spend a lot of time with people versus other specialties of medicine. So I think after I kind of talked so much about how enjoyable the whole thing was, then you decided you wanted to do it too.
It was a perfect storm, right? So I was in a disgruntled work-life position. So my background is internal medicine. I was board certified in internal medicine. We actually went to the same medical school, which is why we met and we realized we could study well together, and that sometimes correlates to partnership in life. But nonetheless, I had been practicing for a year or two. I had always dabbled, right, with entrepreneurial endeavors. I come from a family that is very big on entrepreneurship. Everyone is some sort of business owner. Even if they have a professional degree, they end up falling back into business. And for me, that was definitely going to be something I was interested in, but I kind of had lost the passion to treating patients at times, only because in internal medicine, it's very hard to do preventative care, at least in the setting I was in. And so by the time someone has diabetes that's so bad that they have to have their foot amputated, it's too late, right? Or someone that has high risk factors for heart disease and they've had a heart attack, it's too late. So I wanted to choose something that could have goals aligned. And so I really appreciated the opportunity to come into hair because someone sees it daily, right? That you see it in the mirror, you see it on your security camera. That's half our patients tell me that. You see it, on your Zoom meetings. And so you're really wanting to do something about it, and you really want to take in that information from an expert and run with it. And so I really appreciate that. But I think with hair, for me, I agree with you. I wasn't going to do it unless I got into the same fellowship, and I did. Because if you want to be really good, you have to put in the work and you have to put in the effort. But the trifecta of what hair brings is something that I found to be perfect for me and the career I wanted to go towards, which is the crossroads of artistry, medicine / science, and business, right? And so we don't play in the realm of insurance. People aren't, having emergency hair transplant surgeries. We say that quite often. And insurance companies don't take care of it, right? And so you have to be a really good entrepreneur. You have to be able to market yourself, your team, because there is a lot of competition out there.
Yeah.
And people don't want to just come to you because you're in network, for example, with your insurance or their insurance.
You have to be the best.
100%.
And you have to let people know that you're the best. So
exactly.
You need both of those things.
Exactly. And that's where the artistry component comes in. So a lot of people think that cosmetic surgery as a whole is a commodity, and especially with hair transplant surgery, hair restoration surgery, that is a commodity. It's going to be the same whether you go to, Joe Schmo down the street, to Turkey, to Mexico, to, New York City, to LA. No, every practice is different. And I think that's really the other thing that separates us, because we acknowledge that, we explain that to patients, and then the combination and complementary roles we have really is suitable to provide, the best care. Because I don't try to fluff up things that I'm not good at, right? My training is not medical hair loss. I don't treat complex medical hair loss. I send all those patients to you. I love doing surgery, and I think I'm pretty decent at it, right? Some would say pretty good. So, we've come a long way. We're still in the infancy, I think, of our clinical practice, but we've treated and made an impact. Despite, being 2.5 years in to Root Hair Institute. And it's finally time to kind of share a little bit of that journey, which is exciting.
Yeah. I just want to clarify, when you say infancy, you mean like of how the clinic is going to grow.
Yes. We have lofty goals. So by all standards, I think we have achieved our goal for a single practice. Now we kind of got to go down the route of growth with multiple practices, or just institutionalizing this singular practice into being the powerhouse of the Northwest and possibly the West Coast.
Right. So either growing this location to be even bigger versus other practices, and we can get into that later and all of that.
Yeah.
I did want to emphasize 2 things you said. One thing was the way that we met and how we ended up married, I think, is a good lesson. A lot of people, when I was pre-med or entering med school, told me this thing which sounded totally nuts, which was choose your study partner carefully. That's who you're going to marry. And that's exactly what happened. So to any...
we went into even our relationship early on, we were really open about it. And we said, no, we don't want to get married or anything. We just find each other to be, of course, attractive, but also we're compatible. We can hang out, we can study together, we can have off time. The rare instances you do in medical school and probably any sort of, professional degree kind of endeavors. But yeah, that we came in with that mindset. So I don't think in the beginning I had any inclination of marrying.
Yeah, no, I didn't. That's what I'm saying.
Physician.
But that's good advice.
Yeah,
that you
100%.
Because who you study with is in med school is who you will spend 90. I don't know, how much do you sleep? The time that you're not sleeping with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and then going down this route, right? We've had a lot of opportunities to work together, obviously throughout medical school, and then we would study, when we could together during residency, even though our paths were a bit different. And then we noticed our careers kind of diverged when I graduated residency, and you were still in residency as a chief resident. And I think the problem was we couldn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, because I was practicing part-time. I was also in the family business part-time. That's a different story for a different time.
That's kind of strange is that we get along better personally when we're working together on something professionally.
But it's not all rainbows and butterflies, right? So the issue is when we started, our plan was, okay, let's do everything together. And we would butt heads a lot. I distinctly remember this. You're a little bit more painstakingly detailed. So a lot of the legal, things that we needed, you were better at spearheading that. I didn't really care about it, to be honest, right? Beyond just, hey, make sure that everything is kosher. Whereas I really like marketing. I like the business side of it, creating a CRM or customer relation management system, to get to patients or prospective customers. Those things, I think we just settled into our own roles, right? And then that prevented us from rubbing elbows too much.
Before we started, we both would be fully on everything.
Yeah.
And it took starting to operate to kind of figure out because once we started operating, we don't have time for both of us to be doing everything. We barely have time to, split things up and be handling it. So we naturally kind of figured it out. So like currently kind of you do anything more finance, marketing, CRM, website, front desk, kind of operations. And then I tend to be more detail oriented things. So more like, anything legal, working with our legal team, compliance, as well as any content that we're coming out with. I have the final review to make sure that that's in line. I liked writing more, so any of the blogs and that kind of thing. So any of that kind of more detailed work comes to me. So we've naturally kind of figured out what our strengths are and how to divide that. We still run things by each other. Yeah. But it is helpful.
But there was a concerted effort. I don't think it was just organic and natural. We did have our passions that we just come a little bit more naturally to us, but we had to sit there and be like, okay, you're going to have to let go of this. You're going to have to let go of this.
Yeah. So someone has to have the final word.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes.
At least, maybe not for the whole business, but at least.
Who has the final word in our business?
That's what I'm saying. I think it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
If it's like a medical thing or a legal thing, it's me.
Yes.
If it's like a financial thing or
business growth thing,
it's you.
Yeah. Yeah, it works. It works well. But yeah, it took us a while to figure that out. I think the first 3-4 months of the practice being opened, but taking it back further, we didn't just start this business, Root Hair Institute, with like 1 month of legwork. We worked on it for a year. And that's a real interesting story. So we were in Florida. I was in the fellowship. You were practicing as a board-certified dermatologist and doing hair transplant surgery part-time as well. We were getting recruited by some of the larger firms, larger companies that do hair restoration surgery to join their practice.
I'm like making sure you don't say it, but you're doing a good job not saying it. Good job.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm kind of polished. No, but reality is like we had that opportunity to, follow the blueprint, which is, hey, do studying, get into medical school, get good grades, get a good residency, do fellowship, and then get a really good job and work as much as you want, and then covet your nights and weekends and don't worry about administrative tasks and things like that. And so we kind of took on the responsibility to pave our own way, right? It hasn't been easy. Now, there's pros and cons, right? I think the biggest pro is like, hey, we get to really call our own shots. We can treat patients how we want to. We want to do everything by the book. We want to do it right. It's not about the bottom dollar, right? At the end of the day, it's doing right by patients because that's the long-term strategy, our team, right? 100%. So patients, our team, and then us. And I think that's been very suitable to what RHI is and what we wanted it to be. But it took a long time. We worked on it for a year. In Florida, and so we would go back and forth, remember? So that's something to go through, which is how did we figure out Bellevue? Why did we settle on Bellevue? We're on the opposite side of the country. I'm from Texas. I wear it on my sleeve. I love that fact. I even wear, cowboy boots in the OR operating room. But how did we settle up here?
I mean, that also kind of just happened. I guess in general, we tend to fight really hard for things, but then we also tend to kind of take input from what's going on, not go with the flow, but be adaptable to kind of changing the plan when necessary, which I think is a good thing in life and in business. But we were, so your family's from Houston, you love Houston, you wanted to move back to Houston. I had lived in Houston, love a lot of people in Houston, but did not want to be in Houston because I love the outdoors, hiking, skiing. So we were thinking, and in this time, my parents moved to Washington State, and we were thinking it would make sense to be somewhere between Texas and Washington State, so that we're kind of not equidistant, but somewhere in the middle between the two families.
Yeah. So our short list, if you recall, was Salt Lake City because we like skiing a lot, and so it's quick to get to Park City.
And a lot of other places.
And a lot of other places for sure. And it has a lot of sun. So that's nice, especially now that we live in Washington. The second place was Phoenix, Arizona, or rather Scottsdale. And the connection there is we got married there. We have a lot of experience being there.
I'd lived in Tucson.
And you
I have
used to live in
family
Tucson.
in Arizona.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the third place was Denver. And again, proximity to skiing and hiking and outdoor stuff. And, not too bad of a flight to Texas. Washington wasn't really on my radar. I didn't really want to do Washington. For me, I didn't want to come all the way up north. I had heard the horror stories about it being gloomy all the time, rainy all the time. It's funny, I'm married to a dermatologist, but I love the sun. The sun is amazing, gives me a lot of happiness and joy. But they tricked me. So they had me come up a couple of summers here. And summers in Washington are insane. They're the best, I think, in the world. You have the mountains on one side, you have water, right? And you have these beautiful, vegetation, right? So trees and flowers and everything like that. And I just absolutely fell in love. And so then we did it again, and it was again a summertime. And I was like, okay, this should be on our short list. And so then we started looking into it, and we said, okay, Seattle's awesome. Let's do a market research study. And, when you're a physician, you don't really get that much training about how to do, business. And so we were learning trial by fire. But for me, it was like, hey, who's the competition? Right. So we curated that list, and we did it for 2 markets. We did Houston and we did Seattle. And we ultimately decided, hey, I think our demographic
And we did a little bit of analysis of Salt Lake and Denver.
A little bit,
and
yeah.
Phoenix.
A little bit, yeah. And then we just ultimately fell in love, and we said, okay, let's come to Seattle, right?
The market was super good for the
really
size and all the,
not as
tech
much
companies
competition
and everything. There's not a lot of competition. So we really felt like we could add something to this market, provide something that was not here.
Right.
So you did not have a dermatologist and hair surgeon
right.
in the entire region.
And that's not a novel idea. I don't want to say that, we're the first to, bring that to market with Root Hair Institute. No, it's been there, but there's maybe 5 or 6 in the nation, which is kind of crazy, right? A nation of 300 million people, right? And you may have 1 in LA, 2 in LA, I think 1 in Florida, possibly 1 or 2 in New York. And yeah, this market was definitely missing that. And we had a younger demographic here that was tech oriented. So of course, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of FaceTime to be able to see what they want. And of course, they had discretionary income, right? So they could afford what we were trying to offer, right? And so that was exciting. But we thought we wanted to be in Seattle, right? The whole time. And we probably looked at, I think, virtually and physically about 40 or 45 places. We took 2 or 3 trips up in that interim from Florida. And I remember you would come back from work, I would come back from fellowship, and we would just work 3-4 hours a night for better part of 8 to 10 months on the business finding the place. Sorry, you're saying something.
I'm just saying how I used to commute. I would commute, drive an hour and a half, work, drive an hour and a half back, get home, go to my personal trainer, then come home, and then work on the business until midnight, and then wake up at...
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without that kind of sacrifice. But Bellevue, it's referred to as the east side, east of Seattle. But it really caters to what we're trying to offer to our patient population. So it's at the crossroads of Seattle, but also further east of Seattle. So a lot of folks can easily get to our clinic. There's a medical hub here. So one of the individuals that we first met here in kind of Seattle kind of put it best. It's like, if you want to go party or go out, eating at a nice restaurant, cool place, you go to Seattle. If you want to go shop, you want medical things done, you go to Bellevue, right? And so then we started looking at, this place, and we're currently in our clinic, and I think this was the second place we saw, right? Within the first, day, but it was like out of 15 we actually physically toured, and we just come back to this. And
You
we love
start,
it.
it stood out, and then you're comparing everything else.
Yeah, it became
to
the
it.
anchor for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And we spent more on rent than we were wanting to or planning to, but had to, arrange budgets to make that happen. But I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, one thing you do not want to do is to make the wrong decision on your space and your location. So
100%.
I think making that investment into being in the right place was definitely worth it and
Yeah.
has paid.
Yeah,
out.
totally. Yeah. Speaking of budgets, yeah, we coming from the South, everything is much cheaper. There's a lot more land. So there was definitely sticker shock. And we adjusted our budgets for a while, as we learned a little bit more. So it goes to say that like when you're working on your dream and your vision for a longer period of time, you're just going to keep refining it and refining and refining it. And so we were able to, weather any storm, I would think. And so then we came in and we started. So it took about 6 months, I think, of construction. This was the tail end of the pandemic, supply chain issues.
October, maybe September they started. And
Yeah,
they were
we
supposed
signed
to
the
be-
lease in June of 21, and we
Yeah.
opened in February of 22. But you're right; they started, I think, in September-ish.
actual construction, but it was a longer process of like the design and architect and all of that.
I still remember we had surgeries lined up for, I think, like the second week of February, and we didn't get our surgical tables and lights in till 48 hours or 72 hours before.
72 hours before.
And I was freaking out.
We had arranged to rent them somewhere.
We
if
had arranged to
necessary.
rent them, and we had, the first few cases you do, they have to be marketing cases, right? I mean, you're not going to just gain business right off the bat, especially when it's surgery, it's cosmetic surgery to someone's face or head. So we had to find people, give them a sweet offer, and we said, okay, hey, we get to videotape all of this. We get to take a lot of photos.
Use
we
your
get
before and afters.
Yeah,
use
testimonials.
it any way we want in terms of, website.
And in return, you get a free $15,000 surgery. And so then we had a lot of those people fly up, right? Because we didn't really know anyone from here. So we needed people from Texas. We needed people from out of state. And that was kind of tough. It was like, okay, these guys are already coming. They already have their own lives. They've taken time away from their busy lives.
Yeah, but it was good because it forced us to get everything ready.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Open.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But it's been quite a journey, and going into the weeds on all of that is going to be another episode.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that because that was a lot. We went against like staffing, staffing, COVID, supply, a whole thing.
But one thing I do want to touch base on is it's easy to fall in love with work and keep working because you have a lot of passion for it. And after some time, what ends up happening is you cannot fail. We're all type A, right? Especially being a physician.
Not everyone is type A.
Well, the thing is,
type A.
we in our relationship, are type A people, and that's how we got through medical school. That's how we got into medical school. That's how we succeeded and became physicians, right? But when we've talked about this a lot, it's like sometimes grass is greener on the other side. And there's always like the monkey on your back that's telling you that. It's like, why are you doing this? and there are a lot of sleepless nights. And some days where you're like, am I going to hit payroll? Am I going to be able to, be successful? Is this worth it? All the time. I think that balance between work and home life, that's super important. Right. And so I have my way of doing it. But what about you? What do you think has been the best thing for you the last 2 years, 2.5 years in doing that balance?
I mean, I think it's still something that we both need to work on, to be frank. But I think we're both happiest when we're exercising regularly. I do know that about us. We need that stress outlet.
Yeah.
For me, I know I have to spend time outdoors. So that's why our home, I think, is really good for me because it brings the outdoors in. And I try to walk outside every day, get outside every day. So I know that about myself. mean, it's a lot of things. I think we could go into that for a long time. All the different things that I do.
Key thing for right now is like, yes, taking care of yourself is amazing. It's needed. A lot of people forget about it, and they're like, oh well, I'll do it when I can have more time, or when I have more money, or when things are more stable. And you should never do that, because there is a mind-body connection, right? And I know for sure, with me at least, like if I'm not working out or eating well, and I'm like just working, and having a lot of junk food, fast food, etc., and kind of not having too much physical activity, I'm gonna be worse off. But if I'm running or lifting weights or eating well, I can weather that hard work life a little bit better. And then when things do settle in, it's perfect. Like I can just keep doing what I love doing, and it makes it that much better. Whereas like on the times, and I'm human, right? Like I've also had those times where I'm like, all right, I don't feel like working out for like a week or 2 weeks, and I'm eating poorly. And then when I'll have like a few days where it's like relax, it's also so difficult to get back into that routine because you just haven't been doing it. So I think that's been the biggest thing for us. And another topic I like is, the balance of progressing with your life, right? It's like, okay, we just bought a home and we just had a baby, and these were hard conversations, right? And we were like, we don't have the time to do any of that. I can barely take care of myself.
Right. But then at some point you have to take it off the back burner. So that,
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of white hairs. So it's not just wisdom hairs. I'm aging. So I want to progress with life as well. So those are some cool topics. I think that's what I want to get into, right? Those are real things that people don't really share. I think a lot of times, when I was in training, I think when we were in training, we really wanted to look up to someone to be like, hey, certain topics, they're like faux pas, you don't talk about it, or you just, stay real quiet. That's really something we want to definitely dive into. We don't have time right now. But yeah, pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think
Do it again?
that was a good first
Would you do it
try.
again?
Yeah.
Okay. To reiterate who we are, I'm Dr. Rahil Roopani. I'm one of the hair restoration surgeons and one half of the duo at the Root Hair Institute in Bellevue, Washington. And my partner is
Dr. Natalie Kash, and I'm a dermatologist and hair surgeon here at Root Hair Institute. I don't say but it's the same place.
It's the same place.
Okay.
All right. See you guys.
Signing off.
Oh, God. Okay. See you guys next time.